After Fire Emblem was finally brought to the rest of the world outside of Japan, everybody got to enjoy the series about blue and red-headed lords for several years to come. It was a new frontier for Fire Emblem. It was now getting worldwide recognition, and it got 5 games released internationally. But then something weird happened. After the release of Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, we didn't get a new Fire Emblem in the West for 4 years, despite the fact that a new game was developed during this time and released in Japan on the Nintendo DS. I don't think it's ever been made official why this game didn't get a localization when the last 5 games did, but if I had to guess, I'd say it was because of a few reasons. A, it was released towards the end of the Nintendo DS's lifespan, and B, Nintendo didn't want to shell out the cash to localize a DS game at this point unless it was guaranteed to sell well. This is why Pokemon Black and White 2 DS games were localized for a Western release while the new Fire Emblem was not. Truth be told, Fire Emblem back then wasn't an A-lister for Nintendo like it is today. The games just weren't as popular. There could be multiple reasons for that. Maybe the gameplay didn't resonate with general audiences. Maybe most Nintendo fans just didn't care as much about this as they did other Nintendo mainstays. Or maybe Nintendo just didn't know how to advertise the damn thing.
The drums of war are beating. No man can be trusted.
What happened to Dorcas?
I put poison in his mutton.
Build an army, trust nobody. Fire Emblem, only on Game Boy Advance.
Congratulations, ma'am. It's a meme. It kind of sucked to be a Fire Emblem fan during those times because we weren't sure if we were ever going to get another game. And yeah, we got one eventually, but you can imagine how unsure and how much dread and doubt we had in our hearts at that point. But regardless, this is the game that got skipped over for a Western release. This is Fire Emblem New Mystery of the Emblem, Heroes of Light and Shadow. That was a mouthful. Fire Emblem New Mystery of the Emblem is the 12th Fire Emblem game in the series and the second on the Nintendo DS. The game is a remake of the third game, Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem, and also a sequel to Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, which was a remake of the original game itself. The game takes place a year after the events of the previous story. After slaying the Shadow Dragon Medeus, Marth returns home to his country of Altea, prepares to take the throne as king, and rebuild after the previous war. However, the peace is soon shattered as Marth's former ally, Hardin, becomes the evil tyrant of an emperor and threatens to engulf the land in war yet again, forcing Marth to once again step up to the plate and save the continent. Gameplay-wise, New Mystery is pretty much a carbon copy of Shadow Dragon, right down to using all the same character models, animations, and other assets. The new features that were added in Shadow Dragon, like the class changing system, were also kept for New Mystery. The story itself was also largely kept the same, however several new lines and narrative elements were added to expand the story and help explain certain things better. However, there were 2 new things about New Mystery that were added that changed the format of Fire Emblem forever. Or at least you know for the next couple games. The first thing, of course, was the inclusion of the player avatar. New Mystery was the first Fire Emblem game to include a customizable player avatar that was both part of the story and could be utilized in actual gameplay. Blazing Sword had played with the idea of the tactician character, but the tactician in that game was more of a plot device that was used to explain the strategy aspect behind the games, like character movement and being able to see it. Remember that Blazing Sword was the first international Fire Emblem, so I guess Nintendo felt like the easiest way to explain gameplay and story segregation was to include a godlike entity that watched over the battlefield at all times. And maybe sometimes off the battlefield. The Avatar was introduced with the purpose of having a way to ease new players into the story of New Mystery. Since the game was a sequel to Shadow Dragon, the developers didn't want to just throw new players into the series in case they had no clue who Marth was or what his story was about. To that end, and to a similar vein to Shadow Dragon, New Mystery starts out with a totally original prologue that is meant to show new players the ropes. The Avatar has come to the Palace of Altea to join the army's ranks. They join up with a bunch of other newbies and form the 7th Platoon. Together they train, become knights, and eventually end up serving under Marth himself before setting out to help him put an end to another war. The Avatar is a character that was customizable in several ways, from their appearance and gender down to what class they started as. A detail that was neat about this was that when other people actually reacted differently to your character based on how you made them look. If you had brown hair, then they'd comment on it, and if you had scars, one character, Luke, would even give you a nickname based on that. It was cute, and it was sort of thing that didn't really have to be included in this game, but the fact that it was really nice. For the most part, the Avatar exists to be an audience surrogate. Anytime something needs to be explained about an upcoming map or an enemy or a character, someone will step up and dump some exposition on them. The rest of the time though, the Avatar doesn't really have a huge impact on the story. Their purpose is to act as Marth's bodyguard and occasionally Marth will confide in them about something, but that's about it. There is a subplot about a group of assassins trying to kill Marth, and your character does get a personal tie in stopping that, but otherwise the Avatar doesn't really contribute much to the main events of the game. Most of the time they're just kinda there. It actually kind of confuses me to how little the Avatar had on the story, because before I played this game, people kept telling me that the Avatar usurped all of Marth's glory and basically won the entire war themselves. I mean, if we're talking about a gameplay side, then yeah, the Avatar is stupidly powerful for some reason. But let's not get into that just yet. I was really confused with the Avatar because I kept expecting him to jump in and make every major decision, recruit every possible ally, but then it turned out that no, they were actually just kinda a background character for the majority of the main plot. Marth was still the hero of the story. The Avatar accomplished their goal of introducing us to the world if we didn't know about it beforehand, and then they just kinda became a pillar of support for Marth. The only plotline the Avatar really gets heavily involved with is the Assassin's plotline, but that's an original story created for this game, just like the Avatar, so it didn't really feel out of place whenever we shifted gears to that. Putting that aside, I do think I can see some of where part of the criticism comes from. The Avatar set a trend in Fire Emblem of a self-insert character that could sometimes feel like a borderline fanfiction. If there's one thing that actually bothered me about the Avatar, it was how there really isn't a single character in the game that joins you who doesn't like the Avatar. Everyone who joins talks about what a good person they are and about how they admire them. It was especially jarring to me when a large chunk of the main cast came up to me at the end of the prologue and talked about how awesome I was and how much they could learn from me. Keep in mind, these are the same characters that helped end the previous war. Guys, you really shouldn't be praising me. Jiminy Christmas, you people killed a demon dragon god, for crying out loud. This is only kind of perpetuated how the Avatar can have support conversations with every other character in the game, whereas everyone else is limited to supports with only a few other characters. The Avatar has the potential to become everybody's best friend and the object of desire to certain members of the opposite sex. Too bad for them though, because the Avatar only has eyes for Marth.
It's guy love, don't compromise the feeling of some other guy.
You'd think I'm joking about that, but I'm really not. That being said, I am quite glad the support system was back. If you watched my Shadow Dragon review, then you'll know that my biggest gripe I had with that game was that the story and the characters were a little weak, especially in the case of the characters. The reason for this was because Shadow Dragon was a direct remake of a Famicom game with very little change in the narrative department. As I said before, I think doing something like that is a bit of a wasted opportunity when you now have stronger hardware and more memory space. The thing about a game like Fire Emblem is that a huge cast makes it impossible for everyone to have a moment in the spotlight. So how much you care about non-main characters can sometimes be completely derived from how useful they are stat-wise. It's shallow and superficial, and I hate it, which is why I'm glad the support system exists, so that we can learn a little bit more about a character's personality and their traits. It's especially nice in this particular game because if you exclude DLC and Spot Pass characters from the later games, New Mystery has the largest cast of playable units in the entire franchise, 77 in the main game. So many notable characters, including but not limited to Marth, Rhodey, Cecile, Luke, Gordon, Merrick, Smaller Gordon, Ugma, Shar Aznable, Old Man with a hat, Minerva, Julian, worthless human garbage, free legendary bow, free legendary sword, inappropriately named characters, Katarina, Wolf. The only reason I wish we had S supports in this game, Jake, bald guy, Sheena, other bald guy, Marth's love interest, not Marth's love interest, definitely not Marth's love interest, and Tiki. Ah, crap. Having the support system in this game was really great. It really made me get more invested in my characters and learning more about them. By the end of the game, there were even characters I was using that I probably wouldn't have included otherwise because I wanted to see their support conversations and learn their story. Though my absolute favorite characters in New Mystery were the members of the 7th Platoon, aka the guys you get at the beginning of the game. The relevance of the plot falls off after the prologue, but I love these chuckleheads. I loved how close they got in the prologue, and I loved how they were all decent units too. The 7th Platoon were my crew, and I could have easily played an entire game just focusing on them. The other thing that New Mystery introduced was casual mode. You remember last year during my Awakening video when I briefly talked about casual mode? I had that whole homebrew solution joke. There was the wacky music and the floating heads of me. Yeah, you know that. Well, this year I'd like to spend a little bit more time talking about casual mode, and at the risk of alienating some people, I want to talk about why I personally like it. Casual mode can be a heated point of debate between Fire Emblem fans in some circles. Hell, it was a heated point of debate between Intelligent Systems and Nintendo. Evidently, there was a lot of fiery emotion surrounding the concept of casual mode within Nintendo's own staff, with several thinking that because of Fire Emblem had always used the permanent death mechanic, it just wouldn't be right to take that away, even if all they were doing was making it optional. Permanent death in Fire Emblem is supposed to make you think more carefully about your decisions. It's supposed to challenge the player into making every moment count, and when you screw up and let someone die, you feel the weight of your mistake because that person is never coming back. Throw in games where we actually learn more about characters through the support system, and a character's death was a true punch to the gut, a powerful wound that not only made the game more challenging, but also more memorable. Here's the thing about all that though. It's gotten to the point where it seems like not too many people play the game this way. Most people who play Fire Emblem games where death is permanent will just restart a chapter if someone dies, even if it wasn't someone that was that important to the army. Not everyone does this naturally, but it seems like a lot more common than we think. Pretty much the only time you see people avoiding this is if they're deliberately doing an Iron Man no reset run. Casual mode kinda cut out the middleman. If a character went down in casual, then you're still getting penalized depending on when it happens. If it happens at the beginning of a chapter, then that character's missing out on experience to grow stronger and the opportunity to build supports. If it happens at the end, it's not quite as big of a deal, but it can still be annoying. Depending on when the casualty happens, depends on whether or not I want to restart. There's still consequences for being careless in casual mode, but those consequences don't require you to erase all of your progress. If I'm being honest, there really aren't that many people that damn others for using casual mode, and the ones that are just a loud vocal minority, and nobody cares about those losers. Although, even though I did choose to use casual mode for this run of New Mystery, I probably didn't need to. I do like New Mystery a lot more than Shadow Dragon thanks to the modern changes that they brought into the remake, but I'm also going to go ahead and say this is probably the easiest Fire Emblem game that I've ever played. Maybe it was because I just came off playing 3 harder Fire Emblem games, or maybe it's because I decided to play on the easiest difficulty, which was called normal, because in Japan, easy doesn't exist. I'll go ahead and admit that I didn't use a large variety of units in this game, mostly sticking with the 7th platoon unless I needed to recruit someone, but I really can't remember a single part in this game where I struggled at all. I like the map designs themselves, but I can't remember one part in the entire game where I went, This isn't really helped by how the avatar is ungodly powerful, but even then it was so easy to break the game thanks to a little mechanic called the arena. In most Fire Emblem games, an arena exists where you can have characters fight enemies to gain experience, but at the risk of dying if they lose. Some games just reduce their HP to 1 like in Genealogy, but you still gotta use a turn to heal them, so the risk is still there of wasting time. The growing tension comes from fighting enemies that are stronger and stronger and taking the gamble of whether or not your unit that you sent in will survive each battle afterwards. So does something like that in New Mystery exist? Yeah, it does, and it's extremely easy to use it to break the game. New Mystery uses the base preparation function that was introduced in Path of Radiance, where you can talk to party members, buy items, and in this game at least, go to the arena. If a unit enters the arena, they'll start off fighting something close to their level, then something stronger, and so forth and so on. You still gotta know when to quit though, because if they die, you won't be able to use them for the upcoming map. Of course, there's an easy solution around that by just reloading a save, but it's still pretty inconvenient. Here's the thing though, every time a unit backs out of the arena and re-enters it, the levels of the enemies reset to what they originally were, which means you can exit and reset the arena as many times as you want. Once I figured this out, I just said screw it and decided to farm the arena for about 15 minutes to bring all my favorite units up to max. It really was that easy and took that little time. The only thing that was holding me back here was my wallet, since it takes gold to use the arena for each battle. But with how the game just throws new weapons and items at you, I really didn't need to use that gold for anything else, so it all went into the arena. Honestly, if I hadn't used the arena, New Mystery wasn't very hard. In the base preparation, characters will tell you exactly how to deal with an upcoming map or who you need to use to talk to a character to recruit them. There isn't a lot left to the imagination with New Mystery. The game pretty much tells you how to do everything and when. It's a pretty stark contrast to the other Japanese Fire Emblem games I played this month, which were sometimes frustrating for the opposite reason, that being not telling you how to do things and missing out on key gameplay features as a result. But wait a minute, you said the problem with the other Japanese Fire Emblem games is that you didn't tell you how to do things. Yeah? So isn't that hypocritical? New Mystery tells you how to do everything and you complain about it? Nah, not really. When I talk about the older Japanese Fire Emblem games and how they didn't convey certain gameplay elements well, it was usually about key features that were an important part of the game. I'm not saying that every Fire Emblem game needs to tell me each and every little thing about a level or a character or whatever. My main complaint with the lack of conveyance in the older titles pertained to extremely important yet vaguely explained gameplay mechanics like the child system in Genealogy. And even then, there were still things that the player could figure out on their own, like how to recruit certain characters just by paying attention to the story and what characters were saying about each other. In New Mystery though, if recruitment didn't involve using Marth, then whoever you would need to use would just come up to you and say that they need to be the ones to do it. To be fair, Merrick, I never would have known you were boning Marth's sister if you hadn't told me. So I guess you get a pass. Also, nice. Maybe this comes across as nitpicking, and maybe it's not a big deal in the long run. I mean, after all, what bothers me isn't going to be something that necessarily bothers other people. And truth be told, I really did like New Mystery. I've wanted to play this game for a long time. And not just because it got passed over for a Western release, but also because of the updated story elements, the added support system. I really cared about Marth's army because of this game. Despite being pretty easy, I did really dig New Mystery. Shadow Dragon was a gameplay-driven game, but lacked the necessary punch in the story and character department due to being a direct remake of such an old game. But New Mystery felt like a remake done right. There are options here, there are different ways to play, multiple characters to use, numerous difficulties to try out. Not everyone will agree with me, but I think that New Mystery brought a lot of really great things to Fire Emblem. It's not all perfect, there's still work to be done with the series even today with the modern games, but I still really like this game, if only for the fact that it actually made me give a crap about Marth. And with that, we come to the end of this year's Fire Emblem February / March. I hope you guys all enjoyed these videos. Not really sure what I'm going to do for next year's theme though, seeing as how I've now played most of the games in the series. I didn't think this through. Hey, it's me again. You're probably wondering why this video was so long and why the credits were like a little while ago and still going, but hey, this is why, I'm here. Anyway, I want to say thank you guys for watching Fire Emblem February this year. I think the channel went up like almost 100 subscribers in a month. That never happens. I know it happens because Fire Emblem's a popular series and that's what people want to watch. And that's cool. I really like Fire Emblem. That's why I devoted an entire month to it. This is just my shameless plug / plea to maybe stick around for a while. You know, I've got other videos coming out that I also put some effort into, and they're not Fire Emblem related. At least there won't be another one of those for a couple months when the Gaiden remake comes out. But yeah, I am trying to improve all the time. I'm trying to make my stuff better. I know that I sometimes mess up, sometimes I get things wrong. It's a learning experience. It's getting better all the time, you know? So thank you again for being here. Thank you for watching. Please continue watching. Like, comment, subscribe, that whole YouTuber thing. I understand that having over 200 subscribers is very small on YouTube, but it's really cool to me. I think it's really neat that there's that many people watching my content and liking my content. I don't know. It's cool. It's neat. I am but a simple guy who sits in his craft room making YouTube videos. So yeah, I'm rambling a little bit. Thanks. Thank you for watching. See you again soon, hopefully.